Well, it's a wash, rinse, repeat type pattern. Things are kind of moving along in the atmosphere, so we've got no major storms on the horizon, just kind of a quiet week with ups and downs, and that's not just here, but through most of the U.S. So we'll be talking about this all in such incredible detail tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show on the 5th of November, brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system, and you too can join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is pinned to the top of the chat board. It's also on the description to this video, and Tempest is an affiliate of the Joe and Joe Weather Show. Use the coupon code I Want a Weather Station for any purchases you make on the Tempest website. Remember, Christmas is coming. So this is great for science-minded kiddies and grown-ups. And use that coupon code, Joe. I Want a Weather Station, and what do they get?
They'll get 10% off, Joe. I didn't even notice I'm going up off to one side. Oh, there I am.
Yeah. We're both in black today. Who are you in mourning for?
No, this is my total eclipse sweatshirt. And actually, since the total eclipse of the sun is really like the great celestial road show, on the back are the listing of cities and the times when the totality will arrive. So it's kind of like one of those rock concert sweatshirts, except it's going to deal with, again, the big eclipse coming up in, well, just under 6 months from now.
Well, that's very interesting. I never thought that they would have a shirt like that. That's but they have shirts for everything these days.
Well, Etsy. You ever hear the company?
No, of course, Etsy. Yes.
Etsy. And according to my daughter, who got me this for my birthday, the sweatshirt at the time was something like $20 or $25. Mm-hmm. And now, if you try to buy this from Etsy, forget about it. It's
yeah.
And it's the same thing with the people who, I want to see the eclipse. You try and, reserve a room in a hotel near or along the totality path. Joe, there are some parts of the country in the totality zone that are charging up to $1,000 a night for a room.
That's like going to a Taylor Swift concert.
Indeed. This is going to be, maybe some of you are not aware of it, but I assure you that in the days before the eclipse, this is going to be like a major story and one of the top stories. Everybody will be talking about it. And 32 million people live in the zone of totality, and countless millions more. They say every year that the Thanksgiving weekend is the most traveled weekend or the most traveled time of the year. Next year in 2024, it won't be Thanksgiving. It's going to be the weekend before the eclipse. The eclipse is on a Monday, so starting on Friday the 5th through the 8th of April, which is the day of the eclipse, I assure you, people are going to be in tremendous traffic jams, people trying to get into the zone of totality. Those of you who remember earth science, this is kind of be like Brownian motion, except we're dealing with human beings going every which planet.
Right. Well, today is a day where weather people across the country are celebrating because we're back on standard time. So the European is in an hour earlier than it usually is.
It's wonderful.
It is.
I was actually able to put up a forecast with all new data at 1:30 this afternoon. Mm-hmm. I wasn't able to do that when we were on daylight time.
No.
But now we're on standard time. We're back on normal time again.
Well, for 4 months anyway.
Yeah. Well,
I read a great analogy though of daylight saving versus standard time. And the analogy was, Joe, that daylight saving time is like cutting off, is like taking a carpet and cutting off 2 inches on one end, sewing the 2 inches on the other end, and then trying to convince people that the carpet is bigger.
Indeed, yeah.
That's really, it's just ridiculous.
And in fact, it's the wrong terminology. They call it daylight saving time. It really should be called daylight displacement time, because That's all you're doing is you're taking an hour and displacing it or moving it to another part of the 24-hour day, either adding an hour or subtracting an hour, and it's great. But of course, nobody wants to call it daylight displacement time because then you'd say, "Oh, we're on DDT."
Right. Which is banned pretty much everywhere.
Yes, pretty
Well,
much.
welcome to everybody tonight on the chat board. Miss Fallerite is back. She's been having a tough time, as she's pointing out, with her chemo. We of course wish her all the best as she goes forward with that. Um, just stay strong. I know it's a tough road, but no, we're our thoughts are with you while you go through all of this. And I hope everyone, as I said, had a great weekend. Those of you who are watching for the first time, welcome to the Joe and Joe Weather Show. We're on Sunday nights through Thursday nights at 7:35, and occasionally on a Friday or Saturday when there's a storm going on. And if we are going to add an extra show or two, we always let you know ahead of time. Make sure you turn your notifications on so you don't miss us. And if you like the show, hit the like button because it makes us happy. It makes Joe and I happy when people like us. Anyway, somebody took offense today to the fact that I used the phrase wash, rinse, repeat. You know, with everything that's going on in the world, this is what this idiot has to worry about, is the fact that I use the phrase wash, rinse, repeat. But I mean, it kind of describes what the pattern we're in, because we're getting these weak weather fronts that are coming through that are probably not going to do very much unless something surprises, and we 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 cool off behind it, warm up a little bit ahead of it, front goes by, cool down for a day or so, warm up for a day or so, and this is kind of what it looks like to me over the next week or so.
I agree with you. We don't really have all that much now. I posted this on my Facebook page, Joe. Everybody was talking about, oh, we finally had a weekend. First time in 9 weekends that we did not have any rain or any precipitation. Well, guess what? Guess what? North of Interstate 287, which is where I happen to be in the Hudson Valley.
Yesterday?
Actually, anywhere south of 287, which includes Lower Westchester, Long Island, New York City, most of northern New Jersey. It was indeed a dry weekend, but we did have a weak weather system move on through early this morning, right about the time when the clocks officially were set back, generally between 2 and 6 a.m. Eastern time. There was a disturbance that touched off a few scattered light showers. I woke up this morning, I looked out the window, and I did like a double take. I said, my driveway is wet. I said, it couldn't possibly be dew that caused the driveway to be wet. And then I went ahead and I looked at my weather station. No, I don't have a Tempest weather station. I have a Davis weather station, but it keeps pretty good statistical information. And it showed in the rain gauge 8/100ths of an inch of rain.
Right.
So I had a light amount of precipitation. So for me, maybe not for all of you on Long Island or New York City or Lower Westchester, but for me in places from my area on north, this was the 9th consecutive weekend where we had some sort of measurable precipitation. Incredible.
Well, maybe it was the extra hour. You know, if you didn't have maybe it rained on that extra hour at 2 a.m. and if it wasn't for that, it wouldn't have happened. I'm joking. I know there's somebody there thinking that I actually was being serious. I'm joking. Okay.
Frank R says in Central Park they had a trace of rain this weekend, so the streak continues 9 weekends with rain. I don't know, Frank. Does a trace qualify as a measurable amount? I don't think it does. Or does it?
You know, did it rain? It rained overnight when everybody was asleep. It didn't rain in the daytime, so
exactly.
It's fine. It's fine. No, it didn't interfere with anyone's day. We had a nice day here, beautiful sunshine. Has not rained here of consequence since the beginning of September. The autumns here are insane in Georgia, and much of the southeast. Although it is getting pretty dry. I mean, thankfully it's this time of year because the sun's not as strong. The ground doesn't get baked up. If it's dry in June, July, and August, that becomes a real problem, and it becomes a problem in a hurry. But um, not the case right now, thankfully. So and leaves are all down. It's just waiting for I'm waiting for the first snow.
I mulched yesterday, and for a time, a relatively short time, my front lawn, looked like a pool, the top of a pool table, nice and green, hardly any kind of leaves anywhere. And I looked out this afternoon, and we have like this big, oak tree, and the big leaves, Joe, like size or whatever. And once again, all over my front lawn.
Oh,
so this is the game I'm going to play now from now until probably Thanksgiving. Is you clean it up, and the next day or two, it looks like you hadn't done a darn thing.
I know. Well, I really just about all the leaves are down now. So I took my blower out today and started moving them to a part of the property where it's not a factor, getting them out of the flower beds. So that's my project for the next couple of days is to get the rest of the leaves out. But anyway, no issues that I can see tonight. We're going to take a look at we'll start with the satellite loop and see what's going on. And moment here, there we go. It's up on the screen for everybody to enjoy. And there you see the east pretty much nice and clear. I mean, there are some patchy clouds in parts of New England, but no big deal. The Mid-Atlantic, the Southeast, much of Florida, back through the Gulf states, all nice and clear. We've got weather systems that are sort of running along close to the Canadian border. There's one at the moment that's crossing the northern plains and Great Lakes. And that's going to set the next round of changes in the next cold front that's going to come through on Tuesday and not really do very much. And then there's another system in the Pacific Northwest coming into the Pacific Northwest behind that, and that's going to run across the northern states and maybe bring another cold front toward the end of the week. The only thing I saw this week that might be a question mark would be perhaps toward Friday night and Saturday, while the GFS is not doing it, the GFS takes all these weather fronts and just moves them along, and there's no consequence. But the European Canadian icon all slow that front at the end of the week, Joe, when it tries to move through, like so many fronts have done in the past number of months. It slows it down after it goes by and has some kind of ripple that moves across the Appalachians going northeastward. So that's the one issue, the one question mark in my mind is whether that second front temporarily slows down and we have to deal with maybe some showers Friday night into Saturday morning before it all goes by. But there are no big storms around, and in a pattern like this, you're not going to get any big storms. The flow is fast. There's no real amplitude in the troughs, nor in the ridges, by the way. The Gulf of Mexico is kind of closed off to moisture. The Atlantic is closed off to moisture. So, it's a quiet time. I guess we could just put our feet up for a little while.
And yeah, I had that same question about this Friday, Joe. I mean, Thursday will be I won't say a washout, but it looks like clouds and intermittent or occasional rain and showers. You would hope that on Friday, after a lingering shower, things would start to improve toward the weekend. But you're right. Little ripple or wave of low pressure, which may come in and bring us additional rainfall or showers midday and afternoon on Friday. But then hopefully that will be the only thing we'll have to deal with because hopefully it'll move out in time so that we'll have a decent weekend Saturday and Sunday next.
Well, we'll have to see on that. In the meantime, about the only place where we've got some important action, relatively speaking, is in the Pacific Northwest, where we have a lot of rain that's been moving inland from offshore. And you can see the radar right now is pretty busy up, especially in northwestern Oregon and into Washington State. And this is one area where SPC is actually doing something with this, as they've had some downtime here. They've actually have a marginal risk of severe weather for the coast of northwestern California, the coast of Oregon, and on up into Washington State. But other than that, I mean, there's just an absolute lack of shower and storm activity. No severe weather is forecast for tomorrow, and no severe weather is forecast for Tuesday. So this is, you know, just sort of a minor interruption here. And we also have, now this is with this system on Tuesday. We've got some showers moving across the Dakotas, through Minnesota, the northern Great Lakes. But most of it's streaming west to east, and I think the bulk, if not all of that, is going to go by. It should go by to the north.
I think so too. I think so too. And the good news also, Tuesday is election day, and it looks like if you're going to use the weather as an excuse not to vote, it's going to be a poor excuse, because it looks like it's going to be a rather balmy election day with temperatures in parts of the Hudson Valley, I think, reaching into the mid to upper 60s. Enjoy it, though, because it looks like after Tuesday, it will turn noticeably or decidedly cooler for the rest of next week.
Janet Dunn is on the chat board tonight. Hi, Janet. And she's asked the question, Joe, should the Northern Lights, the gossip is they could be seen pretty far south. That to me is always a, hey, Rocky, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat.
Well, the Northern Lights, this particular potential, actually, it's not a potential. The K index, the planetary K index, which would allow the lights to be visible as far south as the latitude of New York and maybe even a bit further south. In fact, there were photographs online of reddish northern lights that were taken before dawn as far south as Missouri. But unfortunately, number one, it was cloudy, and we did have a few showers around when all of that was happening this morning. And number two, the indices now are declining. So they reached a peak. If you were lucky enough and you were in the right spot, you might have been able to get a glimpse of those late last night, early this morning. But now they're on the decline. So I really don't think we have much of a chance to see much of anything from the Northern Lights. This is not going to be the potential that a lot of people were hoping for. And, you know, we're approaching sunspot maximum in the next year or two. So it's quite possible that we will have our chance or chances. But again, I think this particular shot came and is now pretty much gone. Bye-bye.
Yes. Rainfall. Well, some of this is for some places. There's some snow issues, so nothing major. But precip amounts this week for the next 7 days anyway. Looking at a quarter of an inch in the northeast, mid and south Atlantic states. There are a couple of patches of a half an inch of liquid in upstate New York. There's some heavier rains across southern Canada and southeastern Canada in particular, of 3/4 of an inch to an inch, and then looks like on the edge of the map on the upper right, I can see 1.5 inch amounts being indicated northeast of New Brunswick. You have 1/10 to 1/4 of an inch in the southeast. You have a area of some heavier rains along the Texas coastal bend of 1.5 inch plus, and 3/4 of an inch that moves up the lower Mississippi Valley and then northeastward into the lower Ohio Valley. And then, of course, you have the big rains continuing over the next 7 days in the Pacific Northwest, with rainfall amounts of several inches or more being forecast for those areas. And then you've got your dry areas too, the Central Plains, the Southwest, a little wet in the Northern Rockies. WPC on their snowfall forecast, and this is the latest. So if we this is the probability of at least 2 inches, and you have to go up to northernmost Maine to get into the 20 to 30% chance there. Otherwise, the only probabilities that we're seeing, are in the northern Rockies, where we have probably some of the higher elevations. There's not a whole lot of cold air around at the moment with this west to east flow. So elevation driven in the northern Rockies with a couple of areas showing uh, 80 to 90% probability for at least two in Idaho, central Idaho, northwestern Wyoming, and extending into southwestern Canada. The couple of the teleconnections at the moment, the NAO is kind of straddling the negative positive line. So it's just a little bit under or a little bit over neutral. Not much has changed here. The one thing I do want to point out, though, is that the Arctic oscillation, which we probably should show this more than we do, the AO is actually it's a little bit positive. It's not crazy positive. There are some members that actually go like 3 standard deviations positive around mid-month, but there's a whole bunch of them too that just as many that are up are also below and in the negative phase. So the mean is about 1 standard deviation above. It's kind of it's about a half a standard deviation above. And for those of you who want winter weather to come early, you're going to want this AO to be negative, just like it was going into the beginning of the month when we had the end of the month at the beginning of November when we had that cold blast late last week. You can see that the AO was down at about -1. So you want this to get out of that positive zone and go down into the neutral. And why don't we take a look at the PNA, Pacific North America Index, which is trough in the east, ridge in the west, or ridge if it's positive, and ridge in the I'm sorry, trough in the east, ridge in the west when it's positive, and trough in the west and ridge in the east when it's negative. So right now it's neutral. So everything seems to be in this sort of neutral place, which creates a if you're somebody that likes to see storms running around, this is probably not the kind of upper air setup that you want. You want some amplitude here of some kind. Either you want it really positive or really negative. You're kind of just in this neutral zone, which to me just says we're not going to see anything of any big deals going on over the next 10 days or so.
I think you're right. In fact, the Climate Prediction Center is also showing a relatively quiet period of weather over the next 6 to 10 and 8 to 14 days. In fact, they've got they start us off in below normal probability for temperatures, but also dry conditions. And then as we get into the 8 to 14 day, things start to actually heat up. And Joe, they really do heat up in 1 to 2 weeks. They've got a zone of well above normal probability over the western Great Lakes, the northern part of the northern plains, Minnesota.
You have the map up?
I can bring it up. Yeah.
Well, let's do that.
You want to give me sharing capability?
I have gotten into the habit of turning it on every night. So you just think in terms of sharing.
Oh, well, okay. Now I just hope whatever I put up is going to be there.
It's there.
It's there, and here it is. This is the 6 to 10 day outlook, which takes us through the middle part of November. What? We're already in the middle part of November? Yeah, we are. This was issued today, November the 5th, and you can see that in the Northeast, we are below normal in terms of probability. Not a whole tremendous amount below. We're leaning below normal. Up here in central and eastern sections of New England, it's 40 to 50% probability or percent chance for below normal temperatures, near normal across much of the Ohio Valley and the mid-Atlantic. And then take a look out west, and you can see this building area of above normal. This is not leaning. This is likely above. You see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So right here in parts of the Dakotas, we have a 70 to 80% probability of above normal temperatures. Now, if we take a look at
before you do that, before you switch, go back to that map. So I mean, what that map says is if we were to draw the upper air over it, it says troughs probably along or just off both coasts and a ridge in the middle. So I would guess that in that sort of pattern, you're probably not going to get a whole lot of precip in the east, and you're probably going to get some precip in the west, but not a whole lot in the middle.
Yeah, and in fact, I was going to bring up the precipitation outlook at
Right.
the same time frame, 6 to 10 day,
And lo and
November
behold,
15th, and take a look. There you go. We've got below normal across the Great Lakes and into the Northeast. And where it's wet, it's down over Florida. This is a place where they really would like to see wet weather, down toward the Gulf Coast, southern Texas, and also out west. And hey, this kind of like matches up with a supposed El Nino pattern above normal. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. So we got, likely above normal, 50 to 60% from San Francisco all the way down to almost Los Angeles for this zone right here. So now let's check out the 8 to 10 day outlook, 8 to 14 day outlook, I should say. And wow, take a look. Let me back off a little bit there. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's all the way near the top of the 90 to 100% probability of above normal in this zone right here, which is including a slice of the Dakotas and Minnesota. I just want to make sure that I'm correct. I'm looking here. No, it's not 80. I thought there was another shade of dark red here, but it's not.
that red were any darker, it'd be black.
Yeah, exactly. So only he said 80 to 90% probability. But I mean, like way above normal. I have a feeling, Joe, if this holds out, that we're getting close now to Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving would be on the 23rd this year. This takes us out as far as the 19th. So I have a feeling that, if you plan to go over the river and through the woods in the snow to grandma's house, you're not going to be doing it anywhere around this area, not with these temperatures. And in fact, let's check out the precipitation amounts. And you can see only near normal here and below normal across much of the Northeast and up to northern New England, even more below normal. So if you want wetness, it's going to be across the southwestern and southern states and above normal here in the Los Angeles area. But it looks like we're looking at, Joe, as we move through November, milder or becoming progressively milder and dry conditions. In fact, let me just check one more time here the temperature outlook. Remember, we started off on the 6 to 10 day outlook below normal here in the Northeast. But now, by the 13th through the 19th, they're pushing the temperatures above normal, probability-wise. So it may get cool for a while in the next week or so, but then thereafter, it looks like it's going to start warming up. And really, again, warming up big time over the northern plains and western Great Lakes.
Donald Coughlin, Joe. Donald Coughlin, who watches this show, and he's hit the chat. He's hit super chat for the first time. So thank you, Donald, for being the first tonight hitting the tip jar. It is definitely appreciated. Thank you very much.
When I saw that name, Colgan, I'm not making
Colgan. I had to say Coughlin. I'm sorry. I went to school. I went to school with someone named Coughlin, so that was stuck in my head. Colgan. Donald Colgan.
Colgan. But initially, when I first laid eyes on the name for the first 1 or 2 seconds, I said, Culligan. Hey,
Culligan, man. Nice. All right. So you know what? Let's look at. I'm going to see what Mrs. Ann Sambles has to say because I haven't looked to see what Mrs. Ann Sambles is doing. See if that sort of corresponds with what's there. And okay, hang on a second. I accidentally hit that. There you go. So let's see. This is the GEFs. And try to. There. Okay, that should do it. All right, so let's run this. I'm just kind of looking at what the upper air on the ensembles looks like. And you'll notice, I mean, just going through the next few days in this week, the flow across much of North America is pretty much, this sort of west to east flow. There's a trough here in southeastern Canada, so this is for Tuesday night into Wednesday morning after that cold front comes through. So there'll probably be some cooler air that comes in midweek. And here's another trough that's out in the west. But the flow across Canada is not cross, it's not cross polar flow. It's just pretty much west to east everywhere. So there's not a whole lot of cold air that can manage its way downward in a pattern like this. And then we go toward Friday. Now this is a bit of a stronger trough. So maybe once, that'll go by with another cold front, probably turn cooler behind that one. But again, it's not a big push of any kind. And then after that goes out, we kind of get into this situation. Here's where I was talking about in that 8 to 14 day time frame, which is where we are now, 192 hours from now. Trough off the East Coast, and you see it here. That's why that's why the CPC has it below normal in the northeast. So that makes sense. And then you've got a trough just off the west coast. So that probably means some wet weather coming into the west. And there's that ridging that pops up in the middle. All right, so that's that. Now let's go forward. The trough off the east coast pulls out just enough to allow some of that ridging to move eastward, and you see it there. And then afterwards, as we move through, now we're up to about the 19th. It's hard to imagine. I thought we just started November, and already the maps are going out to almost Thanksgiving here. But gradually, there's still a little bit of ridging in the east, a little bit of troughing in the west. Kind of interesting the fact that there is ridging in the Gulf of Alaska and the western Canada. So that's an interesting development. But overall, it's nothing. This pattern is nothing special.
Yeah, as you just mentioned, Joe. I mean, like it's we're only 5 days into November, but already some of the models, well, not the models, but some of the products are going out to almost Thanksgiving. So there you go. Things are moving along, and I know what some of the folks on the chat board, upon seeing some of this stuff, is saying. Look at this. We're moving toward mid and late November, and still no sign of any. Whatever happened to those polar outbreaks of yesteryear? The threat of some kind of a major storm, which might bring the possibility of some flaky weather our way as we move toward Thanksgiving. Nothing like that. Again, as we kicked off the show by emphasizing, some minor disturbances moving through, but no sign of any real major outbreak or major disturbance coming our way.
If you're not going to have, if you're going to have this sort of flattish west to east flow across much of the U.S. and Canada, it's hard to get a major storm to develop in a pattern like that.
Right.
Yeah, I'm looking at the 10 millibar, so we can look at the polar vortex. And I mean, it's supposed to strengthen during the month of November, which it is. I wouldn't say that it's wrapped up like a tight little ball. I mean, it's a little tighter than what we saw at the end of October. It does tend to have some troughing down into eastern Canada, but the main vortex center is sitting right over the North Pole. So, I just think this sort of matches up with everything else that's being indicated right now. It's November, it's November. I don't know that you get any indication from the month of November as how what happens in the prior months. I mean, we've seen it where we've had cold Novembers and then it goes away. We've seen it when we've had warm Novembers and then suddenly it turns cold. So I'm just kind of in this place right now where it's sort of let the flow, let.
But there are probably not a few people on the chat board who are saying to themselves, yeah, it's only November. Yeah, we have plenty of time.
Right, there's only November, and well, you have the two groups, Joe. It's only November, and we have plenty of time. And then there's it's only November, winter is over.
No. What I'm saying is, it's November, and we have plenty of time. And then we get to January. Oh, it's January, but we still have a lot of winter ahead of us. Then you get to February. Well, half the winter is over, but we still have late February and March, so there's still plenty to work on and build on. And you get to March and you say, "Oh my God, it's the clock is ticking. The clock is ticking. What's happening here?"
Yeah.
And then you get to April and boom.
Yeah, I know
all
it.
over. And wait till next year.
Everybody gets emotional. All right, here we go. This is just what it looks like on the surface. Excuse me. There's your low in the Northern Lakes. And, Tuesday's going to be one of these, you get this weak front to move on through. I don't know, Joe. It doesn't look like, it looks like it's a warm front, cold front kind of thing, but the warm front is more to the north than anything else. And, there's a frontal boundary that sort of arrives early Tuesday morning, and then we just in sort of no man's land for the rest of the day. So maybe it's just one of those, you know, mostly cloudy to perhaps, by later afternoon, partly sunny. Might get, if we the wind is going to be southwest. So if it does break out a little bit on Tuesday, probably could see temperatures in the mid to upper 60s until
Yes,
the cooler
I
air
agree.
comes in. And
I
then
agree.
right, and then Wednesday probably back in the 50s with this high to the north and the trough offshore. Here comes the next low. This one again, energy coming into the Pacific Northwest. You got a low there in Kansas, pushes up to the Great Lakes. This is another warm front, cold front thing. Although it might be actually cold enough for some snow and sleet in northern New York and up into northern New England out of this low. But again, this doesn't really do much. And then the question is, when we get to Friday, this is where the GFS just kind of squashes this front as another big high kind of builds in behind it with some colder air. But the other models are kind of want to hang this front up and get a little wave to go by before that high builds in. So I don't know. Either way, I don't see this as a big deal. And then cool high builds in, settles along the coast. And, after that, there's another low with another little cold front that comes in around the 15th, 16th. Almost looks like a back door in some respects. And then that goes by. Here's another thing with the GFS, though. I want to be a little careful here. I didn't read what CPC's discussion said, what models they're looking at. But the GFS continues to try to make these tropical storms in the Caribbean. Here's another one. It's been doing this for 2 weeks now, and nothing's happened. So, again, this impacts what the models are going to do across the United States and Canada if there's a tropical system down there, because it makes for more ridging in the eastern part of the United States. I don't know how real that is.
Don't forget, by the way, that going back, about a week or so, that the models, the GFS, was red flagging
right.
a potential major snowstorm or the end of this week or the beginning of the weekend. And that they were combining some kind of a tropical system coming up from the south and a wave of much colder air coming down from the north. And look at that! Wasn't that you looked at the snowfall totals, Joe, and it was something like 12 and 16 inches or whatever?
Oh no, it was like 30 to 40 inches.
Yeah.
In New England. So clearly, you can't. How many times do we have to say it? You see anything beyond the, especially beyond the 10-day time frame, you really have to just sort of, blow it off, because most, 99 times out of 100, it's gone on the next one, and if it's not gone, it's someplace else in a different way. So
right.
There's no real value in it to see what the models are doing. You just kind of have to get a feel more of what the broad pattern is. To me, it just looks like, it's just like a snooze fest for the next few weeks with this. We're going to have to wait for other things to start happening. I will tell you though that the Japanese model. I always joke around saying when people are really desperate, and when snow weenies are really desperate, that's when they start looking at the JMA. But
when they're really desperate, they look at the Navy no gaps.
Right, the nav gem. Well, the JMA does have a long range. It does the monthlies like the European does, and it was kind of interesting because it paints the JMA painted a very, for you're like winter weather, it paints a very bullish winter pattern developing later in December and carrying through January and February and even into March. The European monthlies were out today. I saw Dave Toller's posted about it, and they also were super bullish on the upper air pattern. It said kind of the European monthly kind of said, close to normal for December, but sort of the late part of the month, and then going to January and February, we're all quite bullish for the eastern part of the U.S. I don't know. We'll see if that turns out to be correct. The European monthlies during the hurricane season actually did a fairly decent job, and so now the European has got this cold look. The model does have a tendency, though, when it does show colder looks, to back off to some extent, once we get there. But again, it's anyone's guess at this point. I don't care what the Weather Channel says. Adam Lowe and James Davison just trade Weather Channel outlooks all through the chat. So I don't know why people feel like they need to come on our channel, on my channel, on our show, and constantly talk about what all these other people who are on other channels and have other shows, what they're doing. I mean, I don't get it. I don't get it, Joe. Do you get it? I don't get it.
They're trying to irritate us.
I could care less. I just don't like the fact that I just don't like the fact that they're irritating other people that are watching the show. I find that a bit bothersome, but that's me.
Well, it's like that news director from Providence, Rhode Island. I record my forecast during an impending big winter storm, and after the recording was over, he'd say, "Well, Copeland said."
I know, it's like, really.
The guy in Boston or whatever.
Yeah. Sandy Blue Ocean, thank you. Bless your heart. Thank you so much. And she said, very nice thing. I watch you because I get the most accurate weather from my gardening and all my needs around here. So thank you. Thank you for saying that. It makes me feel good. Okay, so we've got Briller Jeopardy, shall we?
Surely, I guess you have the questions tonight.
No, I thought you did because we didn't do them on Wednesday.
Oh well, let's let me go and see, and let me go and find them.
All right, I will see if I have anything.
Where's my Facebook page? Oh, there it is, right there. And we'll go here, and let's go down to Scott Briller. And this was sent on Tuesday.
Right, but we didn't do it Wednesday.
All right. So Briller Jeopardy average first measurable snow in the following cities. So this is the first measurable snow for, we have 5 cities here.
Sandy Blue Ocean just hit the tip jar, Joe. Thank you, Sandy. Most appreciated.
Thank you, Sandy. And let's take a look at the first city. So the average date of the first measurable snow for Seattle, Washington.
Seattle, Washington. Average date for the first snow in Seattle, Washington?
Correct.
Well, that's not a place that normally gets a lot of snow. And they're in the Northwest, which sometimes things can get odd up there. I will say, I'll say December 17th.
Well, so far on the chat board, the one who has come closest to the correct answer, not the correct answer, but very close, Christopher Alley, who has December 24th, Christmas Eve. So we're thinking right around that time frame. All of you folks who are, Michael Azera says Christmas Day, December 25th, even closer. What does that tell you, Joe?
Well, I figured it was going to be late, so what, December 26th?
December 26th is correct. And Dave Carter wants to know, what is the definition of measurable snow? More than an inch?
No, 0.1.
0.1. Not a trace, but
Basically dust.
yes.
Okay. Basically dust. All right. Not unlike the dust on one of my end tables.
Yeah. Well, how about Flagstaff, Arizona?
How about Flagstaff, Arizona? God. I'll say in the Southwest. I'll say November 29th.
A little bit late, Joe. No, more than a little late.
A lot late. Well, Carol DeCara says November 12th.
And Carol DeCara came very, very close.
Okay, so it's either the 13th or the 11th.
If we were playing Price is Right rules, we would have lost.
Maggie P says November 10th. Dennis Cassia says November 11th.
Dennis, finally, he hits it. November 11th, Veterans Day.
That's this Saturday.
Rich Rothmansky says November 11th as well.
Okay, very good.
Oh, there you go. And Christianopedia 11/11. So, yeah, so there you are. Dennis Cassie also points out it's his birthday, November 11th. So we all have to wish him a happy birthday in advance. So anyway, next one is Washington, D.C., the District of Columbia.
December. I forgot. What's New York's the first measurable? I'll say December 17th.
Well, Rich Martmansky beat all of you again. December 18th.
Oh, I missed it by one.
And Christianopedia said December 18th too.
All right. No, I was close. I said December 17th.
You were close, Joe. The little skiing man is not going to fall off with, the numbers you've given so far. But how about, I think I made a wrong turn at
Albuquerque?
Yes.
Oh, God. I don't. Mexico. The first, I'll say. Oh God, well, Flagstaff was early. Not that Albuquerque's not like Flagstaff not even close. I'll say December 9th.
You'll say December 9th? That's way out. Steve LaPointe was a lot closer on November 22nd.
Oh, it was earlier than that?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay. What do we got here? William Uber says November 14th.
Rich Warsmansky says November 18th. Not quite.
Chuck Cardillo says November 17th. Patrick Darcy, November 20th.
And Patrick Darcy put an end to the game right there. November 20th.
All right. Was that the last one? Oh, finally. Got one more.
Finally, Syracuse.
I got to think it's early. It's got to be in November. I'll say November 13th.
A little late.
A little late. Oh, so it's early. It's earlier than the 13th.
And Christianopedia got it. November 5th, today.
Oh, so today. I think they might have gotten measurable the other day in Syracuse.
It's quite possible that they did. Yeah.
Yeah, they've been breaking all sorts of warm weather records, so then they get snow. That's usually how it works.
They used to have I don't know if the National Weather Service in Buffalo has the Golden Snow Shovel Award for the one spot in New York.
I think they still do that.
They still do that. Syracuse wins quite a few of those.
Yeah. So. All right. Anything else exciting going on? Did you have a good weekend?
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, I did some yard work yesterday. and today was kind of a lazy day, not really doing much of anything. So
Yeah.
Renata took down her tomato plants today.
Okay.
We were still picking tomatoes up until about 2 or 3 days ago, but then finally we just had to say forget about it. It's done.
The mornings here have been cold. I mean, it warmed up. It got to upper 60s today, but I mean, this morning when I got up at 5:30, we were 34. I mean, 'cause the mornings here get this time of year with the long nights, it just get, especially if it's clear, it just gets cold. But as soon as the sun comes up, it was 34. So I went to the dog park this morning at 8 a.m. So it was 34 when I left. And when I got to the dog park, I think it was, if I remember correctly, it was about 36. And then, like, less than an hour later, it was 48. I mean, it just flies right up
Yeah.
in bright sunshine. Of course, it depends on the air mass. Obviously, we have a really cold air mass in the east, so you're not going to get that kind of a bounce. But in this type of air mass, temperatures do bounce fairly quickly.
I forgot if it was Wednesday or Tuesday that we really had not just frost, but we had a hard freeze. We got down to 27, and next morning was 30. Haven't been anywhere near that since, but
yeah, 21 for me.
Wow,
21 2 nights in a row.
But it really helps that altitude, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, it really does. It gets cold here. It does get cold.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly all the leaves are down now, so that's one thing. But I haven't, as far as frost goes. Well, when was it? I think was it Thursday morning? Thursday morning last week we had frost.
Yeah.
And but it wasn't a heavy frost, even with the temperature down at 21. It was on the lightish side. But I'm waiting for those more, because we do get those mornings here where like there's so much frost on the ground it looks like it snowed.
Yeah, well, that's kind of like what it was here last week. I mean, like I was stepped outside and my roof looked white, and the ground, it didn't look like snow, but you could definitely tell that the grass was not green. It was like an off-white color. So that was really our first. We had a frost advisory the week before, got nothing out of it. But last week, 27, a still calm morning, lots of frost everywhere, and there you go.
Janet Dunn wants to know my elevation. It's 2,200 feet.
And mine, if I'm the Joe you were referring to, Janet, I'm only at 500. So,
yep.
Joe beats me 2,200 to 500.
Right. All right. All right. So we're back tomorrow night, 7:35. Joe and Joe Weather Show brought to you by Tempest by WeatherFlow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. We are an affiliate of Tempest by WeatherFlow. The link is pinned to the top of the chat board. Also on the descriptor to this video, and use the coupon code I want a weather station, because if you do, you will get
10% off.
And Joe, we have our super chat hits tonight, which were,
we have Donald Colgan. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes.
Donald Colgan and Sandy Blue Ocean. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much. So we'll see everybody tomorrow night at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time. Good night.
Good night, folks.